Welcome to Paradise in the Pines, a podcast about the people, places, and stories that make this the home of American golf. Brought to you by the Pinehurst Southern Pines Aberdeen Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. And welcome to Paradise in the Pines. I'm Phil Wurz, the President and CEO of the Pinehurst Southern Pines Aberdeen Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. Joined today by none other than Nick Bradley. And Nick, you got to excuse me for a second, kind of a long introduction here. Nick Bradley, for everybody that is not familiar, is a Director of Instruction at Traditions Golf Academy. More than 25 years of experience in the golf world, clients to world number 1, 2 world number 5s, European Order of Merit Championships, 8 national amateur titles, Ryder Cup consultant working alongside Captain Paul McGinley, instructed more than 200 PGA Tour and European Tour players, elite instructor and best-selling author, Nick Bradley. Nick, thanks for joining us today.
When's he coming in? Thank you very much, Phil.
Man, how have you found time to do everything you've done in the last 25 years?
Well, I have to go back before golf. With my background in swimming, I was a pretty good swimmer and trained for 12, 11 years at a very high level. And I just through swimming, cultivated a very disciplined work ethic. So when I started to segment time and energy that I would put into that time, I made sure that I got things done. So like writing books, for example, when I first wrote my first book, The 7 Laws of the Golf Swing, you get paid a book advance. And then all of a sudden the publisher says, well, you've got 3 months to finish this book now, or we take the advance back. So it's those kind of like those situations and experiences that really lead you into sort of like this disciplined existence, whereby once you set a big macro goal, you then get into like the micro goals that make the thing happen. So whether it's been, I started off in the first part of my career really wanting to educate and train elite golfers, and I did that from 19 years old, which is when I coached my first tour player, right through to probably 40, 43, 44 years old. And then kind of in that time, I just, I love everything about golf instruction. I love the presentation of it. I love the educational component. Yeah. I love the mentoring side. So, if you're enthused by something and you have a passion for it, then as long as you're disciplined with your approach, you can get a lot of things done.
So at 19 years old, starting as a golf instructor, how much did you know about the game? How much confidence did you instill in your players at a 19-year-old age?
Yeah, I took up golf at 16, and I had 4 or 5 of my friends at my school who already played golf, and they were really good. They were off a 1 or 2 handicap. And I took up golf at 15 and a half. And I thought, well, if I want to play with these guys and get good, I need to learn the game pretty quickly. Right. So fortunately, my mother and father were very good. They invested in a lot of instruction for me. And weirdly enough, I think at 16, I think you have more of an intellectual approach, whereas at 10, 11 years old, you just want to get the thing done.
Just play.
Yeah, so weirdly, I got more interested in golf instruction and, how the brain worked and how we create these experiences. So, I was an okay golfer, but actually my interest started to lean very strongly towards golf instruction and technique. And what happened was at my golf club in London, we had a European Tour player, and he took me to the European Tour school at 19, and he got his card that year. And from that moment onwards, I was either instructing him or other top players in London. And I just made mistakes early. I'm a prolific notebook taker. So, if I screwed up, I wrote that down. I thought, well, I'm never doing that again. And I just, I just studied communication style, and I just seemed to resonate. And so I worked really hard from 19 to 23. And then I get headhunted by the Ledbetter organization. David Ledbetter at that time was very obviously in vogue with Nick Faldo and other players, Nicky Price. And at the age of 23, I moved to Lake Nona, Orlando, and understudied lead and worked for Ledbetter for three or four years. Yeah.
We have a picture up, Collins, put on the screen here of you with Justin Rose, one of your students. What was it like to work with Justin?
Justin, obviously coming from England, coming onto the scene in 1998, he would be around the Surrey and Hampshire scene, so he would be very familiar. And actually what happened was one of my students won the French Open in 2003, Philip Golding. And the next, I think it was the next February, I was in South Africa and kind of like, just started chatting to Justin. He asked me a couple of things about his swing, and then the years rolled by and I moved out here again in 2005, and then I would meet with him and just say hi at like the Wachovia Championship at Quail and stuff like that. And, 2006, he was obviously struggling and in a bit of a wobbly place. And I suggested that I thought that I could help him. And at the time, he was about 123, 125 in the world. And he took a couple of weeks, really, to decide, because he'd been with David Ledbetter for many years, actually. And that was it. In 2 weeks, he said, right, I'm all in. So I sort of created a little bit of a plan and some technical stuff and some mental stuff. And I set some pretty lofty goals. I wanted him the number one player in Britain in, maybe 18 months. And 20 months later, he was world number 5 and European number 1. So he was, coaching is about being in the right place at the right time with the right player. Right. And he was ready to accept new information that hopefully was correct. And I was at that point in my career where I was extremely ambitious to do something with a career. Now, had he faltered, had he gone from 125 to 200, that would have been the end for me. Well,
sure,
I would have been done.
Yeah.
So fortunately, he is an amazing student, amazing player, great family man with his wife Kate there, and it's no surprise to see he's done so well.
It's interesting, the dynamic between instructor and player. It sounded like Justin was like an open canvas, and you can paint however you wish. I mean, what is it like when you first meet a player, they're interested in your instruction? Do you have to kind of understand, do you need a little tweaking? Do you need a full revamp? I mean, what process do you go through as you evaluate a player as to how you might be able to assist them?
Yeah, so there's an old saying, in order to be understood, first seek to understand. Mm-hmm. So whenever I get introduced to a new player, whoever it may be a Leona Maguire at Duke, who I helped for a year. It may be a Sir Nick Faldo. It may be a Kevin Chappell, who I helped. What you're trying to do in that initial period is really to get underneath the hood, right? You're trying to find out where they've been, what they've been doing, why it isn't working. Stuff like what's happening off the golf course as well. Like, where are they assigning their energy? Mm-hmm. So there's many different avenues. You have to be like almost a Sherlock Holmes character, whereby you disseminate and you try and gather as much information as you can, and then your experience will go to work on that evidence and say, well, okay, I think this is what you need and the pace that you need it. So whenever you meet, well, frankly, with me, whenever I meet any new student, it's a discovery process first of all, and then you go to work where your experience starts to kick up the answers for what they do. And then, of course, you come into a slightly different domain where you may have the information, but it's then the delivery of the information, right? It's your communication style with that player. There's some players in my career where I frankly, I get very angry and frustrated, and I let them know that, and then they step up to the plate. There are other players,
the players that don't like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got a fairly managerial style of coaching. I like to be pretty much in the weeds all the time and guiding it. And then there are other players where you have to put your arm around them and coerce them in a slightly different way.
A psychologist kind of?
But the information may be the same,
yeah.
Right? So you've got to have different modalities as a coach where you get a feel for that player. Someone like a Justin Rose, he will intellectualize what you say and scrutinize it, and if it makes sense, he's all in. If there's any doubt or any guesswork, he will question it, and you better have an answer. Right? Other players are a lot more experimental. He's not.
So you mentioned coming to the States and working at like Nona. Talk about your progression to eventually end up here in Pinehurst, where you are at Traditions Golf Academy.
Right. So, I did 3.5, 4 years at Lake Nona, and then went back to Europe, and I started kind of opening up, the golf academies and helping the Leadbetter organization in Ireland and England and Spain and those kind of places. And in that sort of period, I was coaching a lot of amateurs and, 8 amateur champions at the national ones, and then still doing the tour work. And so everything was really going very well. And I always, again, part of that instructional journey is I always wanted to get my notes down on paper, and then from paper I always wanted to get them into a book. Mm-hmm. Well, this middle baby here, the Black Book, The 7 Laws of the Golf Swing, I had published in 2003. I've sold 115,000 copies around the world to date, in 5 different languages, and that was really kind of like a big box for me to tick. Yeah. I'd always wanted to write something, and when I did, in typical my fashion, I'd just start looking for another goal. And I'd done everything I wanted to do in the UK. I'd done everything I wanted to do in Europe. I'd coach Italian Open champions, French Open champions. I'd all the national stuff and what have you, and I needed a new adventure. And I'd done tour work since 1989, and in 2005, I kind of uprooted the family. I went to Myrtle Beach, which is obviously where we first met.
2009, I believe.
Yep, that's right, through our mutual friend Mitch and all of those people. And I actually opened up a golf school at the Barefoot Resort with absolutely no intention of coaching, doing any tour work. And weirdly enough, I opened up that golf school, and 3 months later, I started working with Justin and Kevin Chappell and people like Brad Faxon and those guys. So I very quickly went from, golf school back out on tour again. Right. It was like, okay, well, can't get away from this. And then, so I did all of that work. And then your question about how I arrived in this beautiful area of Pinehurst and Southern Pines is I have clients at Forest Creek Golf Club, private clients. And I just started to hear that some top instructors have been in the area interviewing for a full-time junior golf academy. Mm-hmm. Now, that was one of the boxes that I hadn't ticked because, frankly, the model of coaching juniors full-time had been a complete disaster because, you would get 100 kids, 100-plus kids in one environment. The instructor level goes down because, you've got salaries to pay. So you can't have stud teachers there all the time. They cost too much money. So then the kids start getting coached by substandard golf instructors. And then, of course, you get boys and girls together and everything that goes with that. And then you get shared accommodation. So I was only going to be interested in a full-time junior golf academy if I could call the shots and have quality over quantity. So I went to the O'Neill School, which is where the interviews were held, and I sort of had a nothing to lose attitude. So I said, look, I want to cap this at 15 students. I want family accommodation for internationals or anyone else. I want, my second instructor is going to be, also just as qualified as I am. And I want to make it very boutique and very hands-on where I can personally mentor these kids. And guess what? I get the contract, and it's been fantastic. It's been a great journey.
That's great. And so, it sounds like almost like a mini IMG Academy type of experience. These kids come here, like you said, from around the world. Do you have a fully staffed? Are you looking for more students now?
Well, we are. We've gone from, in a COVID kind of like situation, we've gone from 0 to 5 starting August the 15th this year. So that's 5 students. Remember, we're only after a quota of, we're after a quota of 15, but if I get to the right 10, then that's my 10. We are a non-profit as well. So we're not on a money grab here, which is a big distinction because that allows us to control the quality and the quantity. So I'm after 10, 15 kids, but the right kind of kids that just absolutely love golf.
Now, this with the objective of collegiate professional career?
Well, yeah, weirdly enough, that's sort of their own sort of macro goal. Mm-hmm. My goal, what I can control on a day-to-day basis, is the input I put into them as individuals. Now, if they want a collegiate career, that's fine. Combined with the O'Neill School, which the education's fantastic, with the golf education, they're going to get that. They're going to get that collegiate experience at any level they want to train to. But if they have desires to go on to tour level and beyond, then obviously we've got the experience and the dedication to make that dream happen as well. So we cover both gamuts there with whatever the students want to shoot for.
So and do you still get an opportunity, even though you're working with this golf academy, do you still consult and speak to tour professionals? I think you work with a couple of Korn Ferry Tour guys.
Yeah, so great timing. So on Sunday, one of my students, Matt Ryan from Charlotte, just won on the PGA Tour Latino Tour. That's a 3.5, 4 year project for me to get him to the point where he shot 22 under and won by 3.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I get consulted by good players all the time. I did a couple of years ago, I did some work with Seamus Power, and he did a little bit of work in there where I put my expertise and come out
and played well at Pebble Beach this year, I believe.
Have a look at his last 5 months, and he's broken into the top 50 in the world now. So yeah, I do get I still get that side to me. Yeah.
Talk about your books here. You mentioned the 7 Laws of the Golf Swing. Kinetic golf, I was kind of doing some research on this and understand you're into the visual aspect. Drawing was a big part of your early career, or at least early learnings. And then three-dimensional. You see the golf as a three-dimensional kind of experience. Can you kind of explain the kinetic golf and what we learned in that book?
Yeah, so there's 3 books out. I'm actually writing a new one at the moment for PGA Tour players. But the 3 books, basically, the 7 Laws of the Golf Swing gets you to build the car, right? It tells you how to, everything from Law 1, which is how to formulate the grip, okay, right through to Law 7, which is a pre-shot routine where you flow and your mind quietens down. So really, the 7 Laws of the Golf Swing gives you a really solid framework to build a golf swing, not just patch it up together.
Right.
And that information's taken from years of studying the best players in the world. Kinetic Golf is a very different book. It now teaches you how to drive that car. So it's basically broken into 3 chapters: images of swing, images of feelings, and images of shots. Right? So what we find is when players play their best, they're into pictures and feelings. Very rarely will you hit a good shot with a sentence going through your mind, like verbosity.
Yeah.
So kinetic golf basically is giving you the oil in the engine to actually make the car run, hit the golf shots, get into flow, and play your best golf. And then lastly, 50 Secrets, which is the red book you can see in front of you there. Basically, as I said before, I love taking notes. I've got notebooks and notebooks and notebooks. And I just decided when I turned 50 years old, I've got to start getting rid of these notebooks and start putting them into essays and there. So it's 50 Secrets to Golf You Don't Know About Yet. So there's no real golf instruction, how to grip it or anything like that. But these are mental hacks that I've learned from consulting with Ryder Cup captains, major winners, and everything that I've done in a 30-year career. So you pick up the book, and every essay is really, it's not a dissertation. It's not going to send you to sleep. It's pretty high powered, and hopefully you come away with some eureka moments.
You talk about visualization, and was doing some research, and you consulted with Paul McGinley, the captain of the Ryder Cup team at Glen Eagles in 2014, and you used that visualization, and it even got validated by some of the players and Coach or Captain McGinley. Talk about that experience and how that kind of validated what you do.
Yeah, Paul has been a good friend and a student of mine for, almost 30 years as well, from my time in Ireland. And I was very honored. Then Paul asked me to create all of the backroom messaging for the team. So when we started to collaborate and work together, one of the key things was not really to have imagery that was just a pretty picture. I needed something that had more meaning. So we put some really cool quotes done by players. But more than that, the images were actually sort of chronologically placed through the team room. I'll give you a great example of that. One of the images that I created was from a Ballesteros, Seve Ballesteros image from '76, and he's just got this intense look in his eyes and burning. And the actual quote was, "I look into their eyes, I pat them on the back, I wish them good luck, but in my mind, I think I'm going to bury you." Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that picture was literally the last image that I created in the doorway before they went into the practice area. So they would look at Seve. There's the message. Right, boys, let's go. And so, there was in that Ryder Cup in 2014, there were 2 consultants that were brought in. And I'm honoured to say that one of them was Sir Alex Ferguson, Manchester United, probably the winning most sports manager in all of history. And I was very honoured to be the second one to create the visual messaging.
What was it like to be part of that experience, to be inside the ropes at a Ryder Cup, which Europe won, I believe, 16.5 to 11.5 that year in 2014 at Glen Eagles? Take us inside the ropes. What was it like to work with those guys in an intense, pressure-packed situation where the world is watching?
Well, it's a little bit different from coaching at Ryder Cup, which I've done. When you're coaching at a Ryder Cup, it's almost a no-win situation because the noise and the atmosphere is so energetic that your information delivery to the player, it almost goes on deaf ears. And the players are so hyped up, and it's really the last tournament in the world you want to be giving any instruction to, because you want those guys in that week, target, hit the shot, hit the shot. I mean, if you look at some of the shots that played in Ryder Cups, if you think you're going out there with a swing thought and trying to be mechanically perfect, you can forget it, buddy.
Right.
You've got to be out there with pictures and feelings all the time and just hitting the shots. So that's from the coaching aspect. But that week in 2014, I was actually kind of like a set of eyes and ears for Paul, really. It was just making sure that everything was kind of like, good, and just shadowing him and just being there for a caddy conversation, being there for a player conversation, which I did on numerous occasions. So it was a very different kind of role for me, not being on the range coaching and instructing, but I loved it equally.
That's fabulous. What a great experience to have. And would you, another opportunity for another Ryder Cup, would you love to have that experience again?
Well, so, I mean, you guys, I think you're on a really strong run of Ryder Cups now. I think with the team that you've got and the kind of like the where the European team is age-wise and captain-wise, I think that the European Ryder Cup team is in a very vulnerable position now. You have to understand that the US Ryder Cup team have won 7 Ryder Cups in a row twice. So you think about the amount of yearage that is.
Yeah.
Okay, so we still have one of the images that I created for Paul McGinley was a ticker tape of the European flags versus the American flags in the Ryder Cup, and you guys are drowning us still, drowning us. It's only since 1985 that we've started to come into our own, right? So, but to your question, we have to, as a European and a European team, we have to, in Italy, nip this in the bud where you don't get any more momentum.
Right.
And so whoever that captain's going to be in Europe is going to have to be a fairly dynamic captain with a very definite set of goals and strategies that are going to make the players focus. This is going to be a new Ryder Cup team. I mean,
it sounds like you're saying it's a must-win.
It's a must-win. I mean, the players that use Seve as a talisman will be gone. We can't, that image that I created in 2014, that would not work in the next Ryder Cup, right? We have a new set of players in with with social media and stuff, that they're a different generation. So you've got to speak to them in a very different way, right? So whoever this captain's got to be pretty darn innovative, right? To speak to these players and come up with a strategy that's going to, hopefully, sitting in a room here with Americans, beat you.
Well, we'll see. We'll look forward to that opportunity. It should be another great Ryder Cup. Shift gears a little bit. You're close friends with Sir Nick Faldo. Talk about your relationship with Sir Nick. I believe a 6-time major winner. No introduction necessary. I mean, what a fabulous person to be connected with.
Yeah, he's been a case study of mine since 1987 when I played the game, and ironically, he won his first major at Muirfield, and just one of the most unique sportsman I've ever been around from a case study point of view and understanding his game. I mean, you talk about players coming along at the right time to, you know, create fascination in the game. But when I started playing, he was just out of a swing change. And of course, everything in the magazines was how he went from this tilted steep action where he couldn't control his ball flight into something that was a lot more rotary. And of course, now he wins his first major, and it's like, well, what is this and what is that? So he's always been a fascinating case study from that point of view. And then when I moved to Lake Nona, he, you know, was working with David at the time, so I would literally sit down cross-legged with my notebook and listen to the language, listen to his feet, you know, just learning him. And yeah, I mean, 2008, he was Ryder Cup captain, which wasn't a particularly great experience, but it was very good to shadow him that week. I was working with Justin Rose. And then, you know, more recently, we've got we got pretty much closer than we've got. You know, he lets me look at his golf swing, give him suggestions. And I would say, yeah, I mean, Nick Faldo is not the type of player to have a lot of, or person really to have a lot of inner circle people, but Well, I have to tell you a funny story. Actually, I have to tell you fun. I'm going to throw myself, Nick, if you're watching, I'll throw myself under the book. He'll laugh at this. But I was late 90s. My career was going pretty good. And Nick was still playing. And I thought, yeah, I'd love to coach Nick Faldo. Right, I'd love to coach Nick Faldo. And this is how stupid you can be in your career. Not Phil Mickelson stupid, but stupid. And so I thought, you know what I'll do? I'll write a magazine article, and I'll get Golf World to publish it and blah blah. And it's like Nick Faldo when he was playing well versus Nick Faldo now and not playing so well and what have you. Anyway, so it was shot and it was published, and I opened up the magazine and they had shot Nick probably at 7:30 in the morning, and it wasn't the most. And I thought, God, what have I done? So I was coaching at the Scottish Open at Loch Lomond, and I had 4 or 5 players, and I'm kind of like on the range, writing my notes. They're all out on the golf course, and this big looming figure comes over me like some sort of Greek god. And I looked up, and he was there, and let's put it mildly, he wasn't very happy with me. Right. And I thought, my God, I've blown this relationship. My one of my heroes in golf thinks that I'm a complete and utter right? Okay, so that was it. That was not a happy week for me, or happy existence. Anyway, I got on with my job. I started working, I helped Justin Rose, so my credibility kept going. And of course, Justin makes his Ryder Cup team in 2008. Yeah. And I was very nervous that week because I hadn't spoken to or had any communication with Nick Faldo since that day at Loch Lomond, where I completely, as we say in England, dirted my bib. And so he came up to me that week, and I remember being in the clubhouse, and I was just looking out over, it was in Kentucky that week, and he put his arm on me and he said, "Water under the bridge." He said, "I'd love you to be a pair of eyes and a pair of ears for me this week, but we're all good." And I was like, wow, not many people come back from the dead with, right. with Nick. And
what a relief.
Yeah, it was like one of those moments. And so it was good.
And now you guys work with Squares golf shoes.
Squares golf shoes, the distance golf shoe.
There it sounds like just a commercial.
Exactly, yeah. So they are, again, you know, someone like Nick Faldo and myself, unless it's completely innovative and a game changer, I doubt we'd put our name to anything. And they are very different golf shoes. Yeah. They feel different. They're solid. They use the ground forces. There's, you know, some patented designs on the shoes, but you know, we have tour players using the shoes that we didn't even endorse. So they're incredibly different.
We're going to shift gears. You mentioned Phil. And so you had tweeted out, now I'll just read it and we'll just discuss. Yes. Well done to all PGA Tour players who are on the fence but poker face silent about playing in the Saudi Golf League. Phil Mickelson has forced your hand and made a final decision for you. So your take on the whole Phil situation, and a lot of the PGA Tour players coming out saying they support the PGA Tour and that's where they're going to stay.
Okay, so a couple of things. Phil Mickelson's always been a maverick. right? You know, he's already been maverick thinker. I mean, just have to go back to actually to the Ryder Cup you cited, 2014,
Right. Yeah.
where he just completely threw Tom Watson under the bus. Now, was Tom Watson's style of management that week perfect? No, it wasn't. But you don't, you know, you do things behind closed doors if you're somewhat of a gentleman and somewhat, you know, of a strategist, right? You don't do it in a press conference and just bludgeon an 8-time major champion in front of everybody, right? Just not done. So
keep it in the locker room, as they say.
Keep it in the locker room, and there's way to do things, right? But obviously he felt that he could air his thoughts publicly, and you know, anyway. So, but you know what it done is it's revealed him as just a total opportunist. And I mean, how can you, when you look at the PGA Tour, even going back from Dean Beeman to then Fincham to Monahan now, I mean, this is an organization that has not only given billions to charity, but year after year after year goes out and seeks more corporate sponsors, pampers these guys, right, increases their prize money, gives them amazing pension funds, etc., etc., etc. To have that, I mean, these guys are performers. They need a stage. Now, if you're telling me that stage over the last 30, 40, 50 years hasn't been good enough for you, what planet do you reside on? You know, to then go to a quasi-organization in the Middle East whose life is literally maybe 2 years old and say, yeah, I'm throwing my hat in with these guys. You've messed me around for the last, you know, I've done very badly out of the PGA Tour. So Phil Mickelson really, you know, the tide's come in, he's dropped his pants and the tide has gone out again. Right? I mean, and you know, to the point of my tweet there, you know, when you've got people like Bryson and Rory and Tiger, these people that really have an appreciation of the vehicle that the PGA Tour has been for their lives, their families' lives, their careers, and then hundreds, if not millions of people that have benefited from the charity of the PGA Tour. You have to have a seriously flawed character to be a turncoat and walk away from that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. He says he's going to step away from the game for a while, and when he comes back, perhaps at the Masters, we'll see what the crowd reception would be like. Maybe the everyman will, you know, Phil is Phil doing Phil things, Phil doing dumb things. So, you know, we'll see what the reaction is. But yeah, definitely. Who knows? Maybe he's trying to make the money from the social media money that they get from the PGA Tour. Who knows? But somebody had said that. But he's going way out.
Must be a terrible life.
Right, exactly. But let's shift gears again. Understand that you're a huge James Bond fan, absolute James Bond nut.
Oh dear.
And so let's play a little speed round with James Bond. So James Bond, favorite Bond movie?
From Russia with Love, 1963.
Why is that?
The director, Terrence Young, Sean Connery, John F. Kennedy's favorite book of all of them, and just a good, wholesome. It had special gadgets that weren't too crazy. Great story, and of course one of my favorite all-time actors, not Sean Connery, Robert Shaw as Red Grant, as the villain. A really believable villain. Great fight scene. Okay,
I was going to ask you your favorite Bond villain, so it must be him.
Well, yeah, certainly, yeah. No question him. I'm just trying to think of another one that was good. Well, Telly Savalas, actually, on Her Majesty's Secret Service, a great Blofeld, and bald like all the best people.
There have been a variety of Bonds playing the role. Your favorite? Probably an obvious question, or
no. It is a question. I always say that I can't answer that because all the Bonds did great films. But if I was to pick someone who probably put the most effort in, it would have to be Daniel Craig. It would have to be Daniel Craig. If there was a Bond that represented Ian Fleming's novels, it would be Timothy Dalton.
Yeah.
In 1987, The Living Daylights. Yeah, Dalton was closest to Fleming's Bond. But, you know, the guy I think put the most effort in, I think, was Daniel Craig.
Interesting take. Favorite Bond love interest?
What does that mean?
His female counterpart.
What, that I liked?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that would be in Thunderball, the lady that played Domino, whose name absolutely escapes me now. Or actually in the same movie.
Can you look that up, Colin? Bond movie, Thunderball. Bond's love interest?
Yeah, well, he had two. He had the Auburn girl as well, Fiona, who was played by Luciano Paluzzi. So yeah, so Thunderball, one movie, two great Bond girls.
Okay.
Yeah.
Colin's looking that up, but in the meantime, I got to imagine what your favorite scene, perhaps is we've got the clip of this, Colin. It is the golf
There she
scene.
is, Claudine Agar. Yeah.
Claudine Auger. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. And then, yeah.
But I think maybe your favorite scene of all time might be the golf scene from Goldfinger, which I think we have a clip of that here. So, obviously you're a golf instructor, but what did you think of the golf scene here with Goldfinger and Bond?
Fantastic. That was shot at, actually, weirdly, here's a connection for you. So that shot at a golf course just outside London called Stoke Poges. It's now called Stoke Park, but in those days it was called Stoke Poges, and that is where Daniel Craig shot his last movie before he came Bond, in a movie called Layer Cake.
Okay.
And if you remember the last scene in Layer Cake, that was actually shot at this
golf course.
Yeah, exactly. You did not come here to play golf, Mr. Bond.
Yeah, great scene, great movie. But we heard you were a great Bond fan. But
Yes.
Goldfinger was a classic, and this scene was definitely one of them as well. So as we wrap things up with Nick Bradley here, Nick, tell us more about Traditions Golf Academy. How can people get in touch with you and learn more?
Traditions Golf Academy is on all the usual suspects with social media. So check out Instagram, Facebook page, and obviously Twitter. And then the most obvious thing for any parent out there, go to traditionsgolfacademy.com. We have a full brochure. We explain everything there. And a message for those parents: if you have a junior golfer that has an insatiable appetite for golf and learning and developing, whether you've got your eye on the collegiate scene or beyond, or you need, one of our students won the World Championships this year in California. Whether it's a high level of competition, then we have that boutique experience where they will get personal mentoring from me, personal golf instruction from me, but more than that, they get a tremendous education at the O'Neill School, which is the private school here. So it's got high quality, low quantity, and very powerful personal mentoring there on the golf side and education.
That's traditionsgolfacademy.com. If you want to learn more about Nick and his background and expertise, go to bradleygolf.com. Nick Bradley, phenomenal world golf instructor, best-selling author. Check out his books. Check out his websites. And Nick, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. We could go on for a couple more hours, but it's so great to learn the game of golf from you and everything else.
Thanks for having me, Phil.
All right, that's it for Paradise in the Pines, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us for Paradise in the Pines. Subscribe with your favorite podcatcher. To see more episodes, go to our YouTube channel at Home of American Golf. For more information or to book your bucket list getaway, visit homeofgolf.com. Thanks for checking us out, and see you soon.